Alright, today I'm going to be tying an old Southern Appalachian pattern called the sheep fly. Originated somewhere over in Caldwell County, used by some famous old fly fishermen. Mainly Cap Weiss, the guy that was the headmaster at Patterson School. Also used quite a bit in his book. Don Howell talks about catching a lot of big fish on a sheep fly. So it can be tied as a nymph, wet fly, or streamer. And I guess this one is either going to be a big nymph or a small streamer. We're using a size 8 streamer hook, 3X. So starting off by wrapping the wire. Alright, then I'll be using black thread. So we'll get the thread started. And a few wraps back and forth over the weight just to cover it up some. It's going to be a dubbed body, so it doesn't have to be covered completely. Alright, the tail of this is supposed to be brown hackle fibers. So I have got a tail from a brown hen hackle, and I am going to select some of the fibers, and basically you just have to pull them straight up, don't have to bother cutting. When you pull them together, that's going to be the tail. Tail should be about half as long as the hook shank, so that's going to be about right there. Couple of loose wraps to get that in, and we tighten up. Alright, the next step, this is a dubbed body. The recipe calls for a dark gray dubbing, whether that is rabbit fur or muskrat or something that you've dyed. If you're making a streamer out of it, you could just as easily use some gray chenille and wrap it forward. So I am using rabbit dubbing and just natural rabbit. Wax the thread, and now we are just going to spread the dubbing along the thread. And this is a fairly uniform bodied fly, so it doesn't need to be tapered in any way. Parts of it can be thicker than others, it doesn't really matter. So I've dubbed a section of thread. Now I'll wrap that on. Back to the tail. And I'm sort of just overlapping a little the previous wrap. Now this also can be tied as a beadhead fly if you're going to fish it as a nymph or a streamer. And build it up about the same thickness. I think one more ought to do it. I have seen pictures of other tyers versions of this fly, and some have really thick, buggy looking bodies. Mine's going to be a little bit more streamlined. Put that down just a little bit. Alright, so we're good there. Tie it back just a little. And then we are going to select 2 wings from a grizzly hen cape. These are tied in almost like streamer wings, as close as possible to the same size. So I picked 2 smaller ones from the upper end of the neck, and I always like to tie in the other side first. Basically the length of the body. Now you can go to all the trouble of stripping this feather right here, but you know, it's not that big a deal. It's just being tied in at an angle. And then trim that off, and we'll tie the other one in about the same length. I have seen these tied beside the fly like this. I've also seen them tied on top of the hook shank like that. I don't know that either way matters to the fish. So the wings are tied in. Trim that up a little bit. And then we'll sort of form a head. The last part of this fly, there's just a little bit of brown hackle. And I am going to use a little patch from a saddle, where a little bit goes a long way. It's not a dry fly. We're not talking about hackle that is going to float this. It just needs to be a little buggy looking. Be a little bit bigger than that. Alright, so here's one I've selected. Don't need anywhere near that much, so I'm going to cut it. Really just need a few wraps, and if I cut it there, then I can save some of this and probably tie another fly with this. Alright, so I have trimmed the feather. We will tie it in. Just takes a couple of wraps, and then we're going to tie it off. Notice it's not real stiff hackle, and the fact that it's got a little bit of that black mixed in with it, I like to have some different color combinations in there, give the fish something else to think about. So a collared hackle, we'll tie it off there. I should have enough hackle for my next sheep fly. And then of course the final step is going to be whip finish to form a head. So we hook, crook, pivot to form the number 4. My vise doesn't want to hold. And then usually 4 or 5 wraps over the thread. Alright, little touch of head cement. And this will finish up our Southern Appalachian sheep fly.